Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Baker with Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's SEJ webinar. Today, we have with us Kevin Rowe of PureLink. Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Hey, Lauren. Great. Good to talk to you again.
Excellent, excellent. So today, Kevin's going to be going over winning higher quality links and the PR approach to SEO success. And just before we jumped on, we were talking about more about PR from an influence perspective, conversation perspective, things like that. So really interested in what you have to bring today, Kevin. And before we get started, excuse me, a little bit under the weather, just to let everyone know, while Kevin is going over, are you presenting today, Kevin, or is this?
I sure am. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, I may have to sign out and sign back in. I'm going to work on presenting right now. All right.
But first, a little housekeeping. Excellent. That may be the first slide. Was it the first slide on
there? Bear with me.
Just to let everyone know, today's presentation is going to be recorded. We might edit out this part with us getting ready live, or maybe not. We'll add this to the blooper reel. So today's webinar is going to be recorded. Again, Kevin Rowe, founder and CEO of PureLink. And before Kevin gets started, just to let everyone know, we're not going to have a poll today if you've attended before in the past. But we are going to do a heavy Q&A session at the end. So as Kevin is presenting, go ahead and ask your questions in the Q&A box. We'll be reviewing them and asking Kevin after his presentation. And then, of course, you see the little emojis on the bottom. If you're happy, if you want to celebrate, if you want to throw a heart, throw your hands up while Kevin's presenting, go ahead. That's really going to help us know how much you're really enjoying this presentation. And again, the video and the slides will be made available afterwards to all attendees and registrants. Without further ado, I'll hand things off to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Lauren. My name's Kevin Rowe, as Lauren mentioned. Quick background. Quick little bit about my background. So I've founded now 10 plus companies, 3 of which have been in SEO, PR, communications. I'm currently the founder and head of strategy at PureLink, which is an enterprise PR firm that focuses on integrating PR and search. My background very heavily focused on integrated marketing communications. So when I look at search, SEO, and link building, I tend to look at it more from a communications and marketing perspective, how PR can help us earn links as opposed to, what has in the past and traditionally been more of a link scheme or ability to purchase links. Most of what I focus on is enterprise scale. So things like, working for companies like Coca-Cola, Ring, Central, Siemens, Hyatt, VMware. And you may have seen some of my content. I've periodically published in places like Forbes, Fast Company, Search Engine Journal, of course, and now my presentation here. You can use the QR code on the left to follow me on LinkedIn. But today I'll be talking a lot about link building, and what PureLink does is use digital PR to find links and brand mentions. But I'm not going to talk about PureLink. I'm going to show you actually how you could do it. I want you to be able to, after this presentation, be able to walk away, go out, start doing link building for your brand, right? So how do you earn your own links and mentions, not go out and develop link schemes? There's 3 really important components to this. First off is unique data. Finding publicly available data, running surveys, identifying media trends, which will also help you identify media trends, and then using your internal expertise to provide commentary to the press and media. These 3 elements are what make up a modern day, what you might call a link building campaign. You do earn links and brand mentions as a result, but it's so much more. Just to give you more of an idea of the type of companies PureLinks has worked with: Bulletproof Coffee, Kaplan University, the Hartford, Homes.com, Ring Central, Monday, universities across a lot of different verticals. So what will we discuss today? First, I'm going to give you step-by-step for creating a data-driven PR campaign that journalists just can't resist. That's working extremely well. And the reason is journalists need data to tell their stories. They want to uncover stories. And it's a great opportunity for brands to be part of that conversation or any conversation related to their brand or relevant to the customers. And as a bonus, I'm going to give you, hacks to use ChatGPT for ideation and other AI tools that you can use to build this build a campaign inside of a week. You can get up and going with what I'm going to talk about today. You'll be able to get up and going inside of a week to earning your first link within a month. But why? Why is PR? Why PR for SEO? And I think we know link building and the importance of links. Or I'd say the decreasing importance of links. I think links are still critical, but it's much more complex than that, right? So earning media coverage, leveraging your experience and expertise to develop your authority and trust. And a recent study I did in the cybersecurity space kind of proved just that for me. So in column A, what you have is a lot of unique brands. Column B is brand mentions, number of brand mentions for those brands. The next column over is brand anchor text use. So we analyzed the number of brand anchor texts across these publications. Then US search volume for the brand name. So as opposed to just earning links and getting those links to drive ranking, what we're finding is that sites that have more branded anchor texts, more brand mentions, brand search volume are outranking competitors almost consistently across the board. The chart you're looking at in front of you right now summarizes just that. So the x-axis is brand mentions or count of brand mentions, and the y-axis is US search volume for brand. And so the bigger the bubble, what this shows is the bigger the bubble, the more keywords you rank in the top 3, 4 in Google, right? So the smaller bubbles on the bottom left-hand side show less ranking for less keywords in the top 3 in this category. In the top right-hand side, you'll see these are the bigger yellow bubbles. These sites are ranking for more keywords. And this says or suggests, I don't think I wouldn't say it's definitive and it's not 100%, obviously, these are not the only variables involved. There's a lot more variables, but it's interesting to see the relationship that brand mentions and US brand search volume have. The more brand, not just, generic idea of what brand means, but the more brand mentions you have, the more brand search volume you have, there's a good chance that you can really dominate in your category in the top 3 positions of Google. And I know the top 3 positions, first thing you may think is, who cares? It's not that simple anymore. Especially with the AI overviews and other universal listings and the more dynamic search. But nonetheless, there are a lot of keywords out there where ranking top 3 still matter. You're still getting that traffic. And if you rank in the top 3, you are very much more likely in a lot of scenarios to rank in the AI overviews as well. And digital PR for search has been growing in interest. So this is actually search in Google Trends for digital PR SEO from 2015 to 2023. And it's showing significant interest. This isn't just something I'm making up. There is growing interest in how digital PR is being leveraged for SEO. And it's not just get links and mentions, right? That's a big part of it. It is beneficial, but it goes way beyond that. Driving brand engagement, right? Driving interest, getting people to actually search out your brand is a big part of that as well. But digital PR SEO, just as a cornerstone of it being, earning high quality links and contextual links, is definitely a growing interest across the US. It's getting more competitive too. So I think it's one of those things that we're in the early stages of this. It still works extremely well when done right. If you do truly earn links, around your brand to help rank. But I don't know that it'll I don't know if it'll last, several more years, just like anything. Google search change, how they rank things change, their algorithm changes extremely rapidly. And as they integrate AI into the ranking algorithm, with Bard and Mom and the various AI the AI algorithms they're using, right? The machine learning algorithms are using to help evaluate SERPs and re-rank them. It's going to change over time, but I know what's helping a lot today is digital PR for SEO, and you can see that as the interest grows. So let's take a look at some examples. So these are the types of links or brand mentions you have a tendency to get when you use digital PR and you're using data to find and secure links. So this was this actually is just a brand mention, and you notice that it says the brand Kahoot in this case, and it gives a data point that from one of Kahoot's studies. Suggesting that 9 in 10, 93% are eager to learn or grow at work. That means frontline workers is people that are, working in McDonald's on the front lines, right? They surveyed these frontline workers and found that a huge number of them wanted to grow at work. This is something that gains a lot of interest, right? These data points that tell a story for the audience. And another example is this link from Fast Company. Right? 1% of LinkedIn users actually create content, which blew my mind. Publications like Fast Company, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, they're looking for unique, reputable data from now the trick is that studies do have to be, high quality, right? They can't be thrown together. There is a lot of really bad data being published right now, and journalists know how to pick through that bad data. They know how to find the experts, right? That's what they're good at. They are professionals at combing through data, combing through experts and understanding if there is a story there and are the sources high quality. And another example of how data is actually becoming important and I think interesting to audiences all over. This is a post I did on LinkedIn, where I got over 57,000 impressions. I'm not an influencer. I don't try to be one. But this chart showing the relationship between Moz, AH, and SEMrush's brand search volume over time, that Moz was declining, at least at the time. And then Ahrefs and SEMrush were actually spiking there on the right, you can see, showing that there was, in the US, this is worldwide, but even in the US, there's a huge interest in Ahrefs and SEMrush over time. This is older data right now, but it just goes to show that data that tells a simple story can gain a lot of impressions, gain a lot of engagement. 84 comments, 5 reposts, 195 likes. And as I don't try to post on LinkedIn, frequently enough to be considered, somebody that gets, a ton of engagement. But when I post something that's interesting, right, uses data to tell a story, and that story is simple and newsworthy, you'd be surprised how much engagement you can get. And that also translates into newsworthy stories. So here's one example of a data storyline: U.S. outsourcing to Mexico. So we did a media analysis and identified at the time, a little older, U.S. manufacturing is in a recession. Obviously, right now the big news is tariffs, right? We're getting a lot of media interest around tariffs. We're getting a lot of links and brand mentions, just providing experts in certain areas related to tariffs. But in this case, it was U.S. manufacturing was in a recession, and it's still a hot topic: the impact of tariffs on U.S. and manufacturing, right? So what we did was we analyzed manufacturing job openings in the U.S., counts in the 1,000, and showed a trend over time. And then from 2021 down to 2023, there was a massive decline. This chart yielded, I think we got like 20 press mentions as a result of just this data showing the decline, especially at a time when U.S. manufacturing was potentially in a recession, according to Reuters. And then we went further to analyze the cost of labor. So there's less, and this still rings true today. So what you're looking at is from 2019 over to 2023, there has been a growing increase in cost per unit labor. That's unit produced by year. And that is, as costs increase and labor access decreases, that's actually very much of interest to a lot of businesses, right? To a lot of journalists. Anything that's cost changing, the impact of AI on labor, these types of stories really do resonate with media right now. And if you can, as a brand, uncover these stories, this data, you can really ring in a lot of links. So I'm going to, I'm going to walk through exactly how you can do that. Remember, there's 3 components: unique research, primary or secondary data. There's expertise, and this is actually really important. Do you actually have the expertise and experience in-house to talk about the story? Does it relate to the products that you sell or the brands that you sell? This isn't something just to go out and, you don't just go out as, an expert in one thing and then talk about other things. The media and the press want experts in certain topics. And if you have that expertise, you can create a lot of value for journalists. So individual or company expertise, that could be people expertise, process, technology that you have that's unique, that can help journalists tell a story or, be a part of that story. And then trends, long-term or short-term trending events, trending people, trending topics. Just like tariffs is a trending topic right now. We just got, inside of 2 weeks, we were able to get over 30 brand mentions and links just from expert quotes and unique data we found about the impact of tariffs on certain industries. So major events like that are always great opportunities to secure links and mentions. Why? So the importance of research. So 45% of journalists in this survey by, Cision, they found that 45% of journalists use data to visualize their work. 68% of journalists want to see original research and data in their pitches. This is, 68%. That's, if you're struggling to get your emails open from journalists, sometimes we get a 50% open rate on our emails when we pitch journalists. A lot of it is because we have proper data, very well constructed, cited data. And 35% of journalists won't cover products without data. So even if it's data about your product, how it performs, how it impacts the customer, if you have a new product or if you're, or a service, and you have data about how it's helped people, like these can be case studies that are actually data backed, journalists have a tendency to love that. So how does it work? It's very simple, actually. So you identify your topical expertise. This is internal experts or company expertise, right? This is something that you have experience in, that you know intimately. You find trends and stories, so monitoring media and analyzing media trends. Then go out and find unique data. You have to conduct data to find research, and it's easier than you might think. You typically want to have a very well, an expert in research and analysis, but that's not always needed. And then you create a list and pitch it. Create unique hooks to the media, blogs, or even podcasts. Podcasts are still a great way to get brand mentions and drive engagement. But then you really do need to refine it over time. Sometimes if you're really good at coming up with the pitches, you can get those to resonate. But more often than not, you need some form of design thinking to optimize that over time. So we'll start with individuals and company expertise. So you have a C-suite, engineers, even sales and marketing. Most of the companies we work with, a lot of times the CEO probably has a communications professional helping them out, but even sales and marketing has a tendency to be a useful asset when you have like a CMO or a VP of marketing. If you have access to engineers who could provide commentary for data, commentary for press, that can also be useful. Marketing, even marketing, and having the ability to talk about topics, especially if you have like a Marcom software or a software that or a service that's something to do with marketing, and you have a marketing sales and marketing director, that's usually a match made in heaven. Even your own company expertise. So like what products you sell, the technologies you have or processes. So like, your own product, obviously start there, right? You're going to be, I would hope, and I think most times you're going to be an expert in your own product. So make sure you focus on the key benefits, the value you're creating for the consumer, and use that as a point of thinking about your expertise. Any special technology that might solve a problem for somebody, so we were part of, an AI company client, launched a free tool that allowed people to scan documents and automate moving those over to a database. Those types of tools, which are actually useful, that solve a problem, have a tendency to be, could be useful to press, and they might want to talk about it, or it can at least help be a cornerstone for your conversation. Or unique processes. So can you, without giving away all of your, IP, do you have processes that can help other people solve problems, right? DIYers, there's always DIYers in every industry. And unique processes that maybe your team uses, maybe you use internally, and being able to share those with the public is a great way to secure coverage, especially if it's related to a big trend. So how do you find these trending stories? And I think that a lot of times you're looking for something over the last 3, 6, or 12 months. You can definitely get something that's breaking, like the tariffs right now has been going on for about a month, and it's changing rapidly. We just did a whole study around tariffs, then we had to trash it because it was too old because new tariffs came out. So, sometimes you have to be really quick with it, but other times there's longer trends, right? Like AI is a long trend. Anything regulation, if there's a regulation that happened in your industry last year that people still need to understand, maybe they're not talking about it enough, you can start a conversation around that. Make sure the trends are topical, right? You want to keep them within a specific topic area. And there's also specific people or company events, like when Google came out with AI for healthcare, or right now, just as Google, adds AI overviews to their algorithm. People want to talk about that, and they want experts to communicate, explain it, help them understand it, right? But you can also find available research. Sometimes there's already existing research out there, industry reports, data in press. You can usually find some data that's already exists and build off of that, explain it a little bit deeper. Any ranked studies or other data related to events. So find that data and then use that to understand the trends and find data relevant to that or different than that. And then you can also, if you have experts for events, story-based topics, or additional research, case studies are all great things that are related to trends, are extremely useful. Tools that we use, that we have used, in part, are that simple and cheap. So Google BuzzSumo, a great way to identify like what's trending, what kind of trending stories are happening. Google News is very heavily all you need. Just go out and Google News, follow topics or stories in your industry, and then focus on those. Anything impacting your industry, if the tariffs impact your industry some way, focus on those. Google Trends, if you see something trending in Google Trends, uncover a trend there, something new, some spikes in data. That works. Anything you follow on social media or LinkedIn. Journalists find stories on social media and LinkedIn, right? Twitter, X. TikTok is actually a source of news stories for a lot of journalists. You can also look at competitors on support forums or unresolved problems. So if your competitors or maybe industry related software has problems, you can dive in, understand that, maybe survey the audience a little bit more, get more data, and tell a story with that data. So your expertise, media trends, and a lot of it's the customer journey, right? Tying into customers. As I showed this before, this is, I found this chart, this data in Google Trends, right? To tell a story of increasing competition between Moz, Ahrefs, and SEMrush, which has changed over time, of course. But I learned about that on Reddit. I saw that there was actually people on Reddit talking about, the software in one way or another, either positively or negatively. And it sparked interest, so I started digging data, just looking at Google Trends. And then I surveyed. I actually ran a survey. There was a while ago, I think this is kind of old news right now for sure, but like, how do you feel about Ahrefs price increase? So several years ago, Ahrefs increased their price. So I ran a simple poll on LinkedIn to say, how many people are either extremely unhappy or somewhat unhappy with the price increase. I mean, it's a price increase, so that obviously the survey is a little biased. I think nobody wants their prices to increase. Doesn't mean they're going anywhere. But with pretty significant engagement with this survey when it's the right topic, right? 11,000 impressions on this data, and these sort of things, these simple little surveys you can run on LinkedIn can actually get you a story, or at least uncover the story. If you find something here, you can then dig in further, provide commentary to the media on this story, pitch the media on stories. If somebody is unhappy with something, that there's definitely there will be interest from journalists related to that story. And you can use simple prompts in ChatGPT as well to help you come up with some of these ideas, right? And this simple prompt here at the end, you'll see what are some storyline topics I can use in digital PR for this trend, right? So there's manufacturing is in a recession, and there's negative impact on new labor due to high labor costs and high labor and material costs. So ChatGPT actually is a useful tool for you to find and uncover storylines. So 3 very simple storylines here: resilience in manufacturing, sustainable practices, technology and automation at a time when AI is becoming obviously more and more important, embedded into society and into how we do business. Technology and automation, talking about labor cost, right? So how AI is potentially going to be able to increase or offset the impact of high labor costs, which I think is a great opportunity for a lot of people who want to make more, right? So if you're, very good at your job and able to use AI to do more work or higher quality work, using automation to get more done or get higher quality of work done is a great storyline. And there are a lot of journalists out there that want to talk about that. This just going further down, like training and skill development, how AI can develop up some of the people who cost more. If labor costs are going up, well, let's invest in those people and train them, right? How can AI train, people with the higher labor costs to get better results? Or how can you, even in an industry like construction, one of the topics, flowing through construction right now is the increasing the lack of access to construction labor, slowing down construction, right? Data centers, Google's data centers, and AI data centers, construction is an extremely important project for America. And why wouldn't stories, if you have a training company or if you have a construction company, why wouldn't you want to talk about that in the press? The press is definitely interested in finding data or experts to talk about those stories. So where can you find this data? 3 different areas I find very useful. Find questions that the audience has about trends. You always start with questions. It might seem like you want to dig in the data and just find something interesting, but start with a question, try to answer it. And then identify data that can provide insights related to those questions. It's very simple idea. Public data sources like the USA.gov, data.gov, CDC, Pew, FBI crime database, Department of Labor, all of these sources have data you can use. They provide data. They give you free data. You can also go out and do your own crawls. Learn Python or find somebody that knows Python. You can find a freelancer that knows how to crawl with Python, or existing crawlers, or a crawler API, and use that data. Use that data to tell a story. And surveys, I find, are my favorite. Surveying an audience, either a network, serving people on social, or an existing email list you might have. We use a lot of internal company data as well. So if you have a tool or technology, you can use your internal data. We've been using internal company data to tell a story about you, to tell stories related to trends. You only have that data. If you have unique data about your customers, that's something that nobody else has, and it becomes extremely important. You can also do this chart here. I just threw this together very quickly, but you can visualize it in a few different tools. There's tools you don't need to be highly skilled in, to create, or need a designer to create amazing charts and graphs. You can take that data and use tools like Flourish or PictoChart. These are visualization tools that create interactive charts. And this one right here is using Google Trends data. I use Flourish to do that, and I'll do it for you, with very little effort and very little knowledge. It's you don't need databases or have design skills right now. It's a great time to be alive as a marketer, because you can visualize almost anything in moments, and AI is making it even easier to visualize data. So the last topic I'll talk about, I believe, finding journalists, coming up with lists of journalists. So first off, there's journalists. You can find a list of publishers. You can find lists of podcasts, lists of blogs, or even looking at social with clients and partners, right? So like you can find lists to pitch almost anywhere. A lot of the pitching, when you're getting to pitch, you customize pitch by category. So, right, create a pitch based on the journalist content, the podcast, or the media. So you have to customize pitches. One of the things I do here a lot is, can you bulk pitch these? Meaning, do you want to take a pitch and send it out to 1,000 journalists? The answer is no. Journalists have beats. Publishers have certain topics they cover. Would you pitch the Search Engine Journal on data about shoes that had nothing to do with marketing? No, it would never get opened, right? So finding the journalists that would talk about those topics, right? The podcast that talks about these topics, everything's niche now. Publications are niching out. Even at the New York Times, they have specialized journalists in labor, right? They have economic journalists. You have to find the right journalists, even in these bigger publications. We're pitching CNN. And there's certain news programs, there's certain journalists that, at least in CNN Online, that covered these different topics. You got to find the right journalist. And there's hundreds of those journalists across the US, but you start to pitch them in bulk, they're going to get angry at you, and they might stop opening your email. It's about building relationships. So with this list, I put list and pitch together because these lists of journalists are based on the category, based on their beats. So you have to read through their articles, you have to get to know them, and work on building relationships with them. The tools that you can use, Muckrack or Prowly. Prowly has become like a really dominant player, but Muckrack is still huge. Muckrack in the US has one of the largest databases of journalists that you can find. It is kind of hard to use, but an amazing tool. Another one, I'm going to give you an extra bonus, AI tools that build lists for you. So you can use ChatGPT. And here's an example of we uploaded a story, and ChatGPT actually we give it a storyline and gives us a list of beats or publications we should target. So even for that manufacturing sector survey we just shared, the data we shared, gave us a list of business journalists, industry reporters. We get a ton of industry publications linking, as long as the data is relevant to their audience. Technology and innovation journalists, or even environmental reporters, which I didn't think of that angle until we did it here. Some more economic journalists, labor and workforce development journalists, global trade journalists, consumer affair journalists, like the list just keeps going. And you can find a lot of these. ChatGPT can help you brainstorm what type of journalists, what beats, what publications you should be targeting. There are a lot of publications out there, a lot of blogs, a lot of podcasts. This can help narrow it down. But however, if you want to really, simplify your list building and pitch development, list building, there's a tool called OnePitch. So it's an AI-based tool that you can use. And all you have to do is upload your subject, your brand name, a little description of your pitch, and some bullets about why it's newsworthy, and a few other items. By doing that, OnePitch actually comes back with a list of journalists for you that would be interested in that story. So remember how I said that it's actually critical that you find journalists that would be interested in your story? Well, this is what OnePitch helps you do. In this case, when we uploaded it, we found labor, it'll return a role in an outlet. So even labor and workforce journalists at NPR. Obviously, you got to find the right angle for NPR, but it found a senior writer who writes about similar topics at Fortune. We just got a link in Fortune for a trade story using similar methods. The Washington Post, corporate culture, Los Angeles Times staff writers, right? Even the publication chief executive have found a contributor. This publication, although it's not a massive database, it's not like Muckrack, I do find it extremely useful AI tool for finding journalists. And I think if you come up with a good story with data, you have an internal expert, and then you use OnePitch AI tool to find some journalists you can pitch in there as well, it'll craft the pitch for you. It'll help you build the pitch. I'd be willing to bet you could find placements in the next month. Pretty confident in that. So as a bonus, here's a general layout to what you might, you got to stay organized with this. And so here's a general layout. You usually have an asset you build, a study or some sort of asset around a trend, right? So in this case, outsourcing to Mexico for raising labor costs. And then in our documents, we just get the contact, the focus of the journalists, what publication they're in, always examples of their data. So if you're going to have somebody like a junior or an outsourced support help you build lists, this is the type of information you need. They need a pitch angle for that journalist. So I think that just with this data, you can produce actually amazing results. Doesn't take that much. You don't have to make it complicated, this pitching. Just build a list of journalists and come up with story angles for that journalist. Go right down the list. Sometimes you can find one angle to pitch 30 journalists with. But, don't do it in the thousands. Yeah. I mean, even if I say 30, I feel like, some journalists might get mad at me. A lot of them want one-to-one communication. They want you to read through their stories, understand what they talk about, what they write about, understand their perspective and angles they take on those topics, and then provide data and pitches relevant to those trends. So here's the last bonus for you. Measurement and analysis. So you've got to test it over time. Right now, PureLink is actually at the point where we kind of understand the stories. The more you do this, the easier it gets. We don't have to do as much testing as we did before because the team can usually pick up on the story and get good data. We know how to pitch it. We know what journalists like and what they don't like. But if you need to test, use this. Go after a media segment, come up with a storyline, identify how you want to measure results. Do you want people to share the article? Do you want like 50 publications to share it? Do you want just one in New York Times? And then measure the results. Keep a document like this for every story you pitch, every data point you have, and keep modifying it. If you did that once a month in a year, you're going to be an expert in this, or at least very strong. We got good because we would do it once a week. We have a weekly cycle, and that weekly cycle of pitching, 3 to 5 stories a week, starting out. There's only 3 to 5, and now I don't even know how many we pitch on a given week. But those stories have, you get a lot of learnings when you track it in detail in a document, analyze it, and you will get better. I can promise you that. But if you follow what I talked about today, I think you'd be able to get a link live and brand mentions and get cited in the media or quoted from an internal expert, a CEO, a VP of marketing, or even yourself, whoever you are. And, I think you can go far. Just test it out. Try it yourself. So again, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me on X as well at @_Kevin Rowe. You can email my company if you're interested in PureLink, helping you do digital PR for SEO as well, at info@purelink.com, or use the QR code and follow me on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Always great material as usual. And as usual, we do have a lot of questions that came in. So thanks for piquing everyone's interest when it comes to this. One of the first questions, I'm going to this is actually 2 questions in one. So I'm going to ask you the second part of it. There's a lot of specialized outreach tools out there like Pitchbox and BuzzStream. Do you find those effective for contacting journalists? And more crucially, how do you manage email tracking, such as opens, clicks, replies, and follow-ups in a scalable way to handle potential large outreach campaigns efficiently?
So, large outreach, BuzzStream is an amazing tool. I think Pitchbox is good too, but I think BuzzStream is better for PR. Pitchbox is a great link building tool. It integrates with a lot of things like Ahrefs, Moz, like a lot of the key tools, and SEMrush is still my favorite. Pitchbox, BuzzStream allows you to do a little bit more media monitoring, find journalists that tell stories, look up stories. I think those are really good tools. BuzzStream actually is probably one of the very scalable tools out there. However, there are obviously some pros and cons to it. There's certain metrics it doesn't have that I think would be kind of useful. But if you're talking about a scalable way, again, I don't recommend emailing hundreds, if not, hundreds of journalists. So when we talk about scale to me means you're finding more data and more interesting trends, and you're finding groups of journalists that are related to those trends. I have not found tools that do it very well. We use spreadsheets still to help us kind of manage a lot of that. I build templated documents, spreadsheets, along with BuzzStream to help manage your outreach, which it does a very good job with. I think you're going to get a long way with that. But when we talk scale, you need to know what scale is. Scale is not just one study and thousands of journalists. Scale is, 10 studies maybe in over several months, and 5 internal experts or 6 internal experts, right? So we have some clients will have 10 or 15 experts, and we'll have 15 studies, one for each of the experts. Or if the experts are scientists, you got to take those and find journalists for it. I have yet to find a tool that helps you manage that properly. And even if you're doing things like, list building, right? Pitchbox does an okay job with that. Or excuse me, BuzzSumo does an okay job with that. BuzzStream rather. But you still need tools like Prowly or Muckrack to help build stronger lists of journalists. So the reality is you need multiple tools to pitch this right now. Prowly is probably, and SEMrush is actually a very amazing company. And I think they're going to, Prowly is probably the one I would get used to using. It is a little costly, I think, but spreadsheets is probably your best bet. Develop your own spreadsheet template for managing it. I may share it on LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, maybe I'll share it. I don't know. Follow me to find out.
Absolutely. Next question to build upon that is, when you are sending out those email pitches utilizing a tool like BuzzStream, do you recommend utilizing a click tracking? So the links that are in the email can go through a redirect so you can then track and see if the journalist clicked on that? Or do you find that to be somewhat detrimental because they can see it's an automated pitch process? Or not automated, but
Well, yeah, because when you set up the link tracking, it adds a bunch of stuff to it that looks a little funny on the for while sending in emails and can impact your deliverability. So I'm not actually worried about the click, to be honest. What I'm mostly interested in, did they open the email? If the header describes that text, then I'm not worried about it. All I care about is, are they opening the email, number one? And if so, that means your headline, your subject header should describe the content inside. And if it does, and it is really tied into it, you're not trying to trick people to open your email. You're trying to explain what the email is about. And if you have the right journalist, again, next step is, are they actually sharing the story? And if they're opening it but not sharing it, your data, now your pitch sucks. That's all that matters, is, are they actually engaging with it? Other than that, I don't really care about the click.
do you recommend those tricks like checking out the journalist's Instagram or social media and like starting the email something like, "Oh, I see you love golden retrievers," or whatever? Or is that a little bit too creepy?
I think it's a waste of time for busy journalists. I think journalists want a good story. Focus your time on building the story. Use their social media to understand what they cover and how they cover it. Right. So like, journalists have certain perspective. You can find a journalist in San Francisco, for example. You pitch them on a story versus a journalist in Florida. Culturally, very different places. The journalists talk about things differently. So I don't recommend the tricks. What I recommend is you create a better story and you tailor that story to that journalist, but use social as a means of understanding what they care about, what angles they pitch things through. But if you start throwing in stuff like that, creepy or not, it's just irrelevant. I think it's a waste of the journalist's time, precious time they have. And you might piss them off. You piss me off when I get that. I hate it.
Yeah, I hate it too. Like, get off my social profiles.
Yeah.
Next question. Actually, we had this question come through from a publisher and from someone that's doing digital PR. First of all, where can publishers find experts on certain subjects to get quotes from them for their articles? And then vice versa, are there any online kind of matchmaking services or portals where an expert can register to become more discoverable by journalists?
Quoted is one of them. So if you want to get quoted, is actually pretty good. Journo request as well. If you're looking for a source, post it on Journo request. Hashtag Journo request on X. Also on LinkedIn, it works pretty well, surprisingly. But that's, the Journo request had tended to be more UK, Europe, but now it's moved into the US. So that's one of it. Build relationships with PR people. PR people, even sometimes you just got to reach out to them, get your own little list. Put PR people on your own list. Why don't journalists do this more? I have to build lists of experts. You can sign up for my list, my PureLinks list. If you email info@purelink.com and you're a journalist, we have a list of experts and studies we'll actually send out to you. And as we add new ones on, you can get it. Create your own, a list of topics you're working on, and then add PR people to your email lists. As that goes, it's surprisingly useful. And then there's also things like Expert File is another one, which has a list of experts you can get. Most universities as well. We have a lot of university clients, and the university have a lot of experts. You'd be surprised just going through that teacher list, professor list, how many, you'd probably be easier to go through the PR department or somebody that has relationships with the university. But we have universities where we just have access at the experts. We don't even pitch. We just don't have time to go through the large amount of teachers and researchers that we have access to pitch every one of them. So you'd be surprised how simple things like that can help you find experts. And then just Google expert lists. There is a new tool that came out. I can't remember it. This guy in UK who's kind of clever dude launched. I can't remember it, but if I think about it, I'll post it on LinkedIn. But there are a number of little tools out there. Quoted, I think, is a good one for journalists. And reach out to professors at universities. You'd be surprised how clever, smart people you can find that way.
Next question. How relevant is link building still in 2025? And are there any risks to digital PR in terms of obtaining links, unwanted links, or spammy links?
So I think PR, you're going to get links that you might consider bad. No, I've never seen a risk for it. They just come in naturally as part of your link, the syndicated links. You'll see a lot of these things called syndicated. Basically means if you get an article in New York Times or even like if you look at Search Engine Journal, they get syndicated placements of their content. It's not a bad thing. It's not, if you have a link in it and it's syndicated, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't hurt you. So I think the first part of the question is link building relevant. The second thing is the risk of digital PR. So link building, I don't think people should be doing, say, link building. I think you should be earning links and brand mentions. You should be focusing on driving your audience, talking to your audience and getting them back to your site by publishing your expertise, leveraging your expertise and experience to build your authority and trust. It's different than link building. And it is EEAT related topics, but I use it in terms of this. You are an expert, you with experience in certain topics. Talk about those experiences and that expertise you have. And then use that to build authority and trust inside of a community, inside of an audience, right? That use your product, that your product creates value for. I think that's where I think that's the way, it's going to be a requirement in a couple of years. So I think link building, does it work? Depends on the scenario. If you're just doing it to get links and you're doing guest posting links and all that stuff, I think it's practically dead. Yes, you can get some really high quality links and pay your way into it. You can pay your way into TechCrunch or something if you really try. I don't do that, but you can do it, and that's considered link building. Yeah, sure, that could work to get you a couple links, but will you be first for the keyword that dominates your category? So if you sell e-bikes and you want to rank number one for the word e-bike or buy e-bike online or e-bikes for sale online, are you going to buy your way to the top of that? I think the answer is becoming quickly. If not, it's already no. Because if you see the types of if you really analyze the link profile, I did a case study on this for the company Electric E-Bike. And Electric E-Bike really just used PR and got, they got a lot of links and stories about their bike, comparing it to other bikes, talking about the features of their bikes, right? Why they're the lowest cost provider of the bike, getting interviews for the CEO appearing on podcasts, and they rank everywhere number one for the word e-bike or e-bikes, of which I think last I look at, they were getting like 300 sessions a month from that term, right? So, and you need brand search volume to come from this. So so for me, link building, does it work? It's just part of the equation. Links are still a user experience thing, right? They do help to, I'm sure they have a weighted value that they have on ranking for sure. But if your objective is to rank number one and be the first in your category for the commercial keywords that are high search volume, don't spend your time doing it. PR is working. The reason why PR is working is because it does, I think, those things that links alone don't do. You do earn links, yes, but it drives consumer engagement. It shapes opinions in some cases, right? It builds you as an authority. So we need to start thinking about link building. We need to start thinking alternative to link building. PR is definitely the alternative to link building. In 2 years, will it be? But just getting links from PR and that work alone, I don't know. I think you have to have a more complex model. And that's where the risk is. The risk is Yes, it works today. It does very well. The links you get, the brand mentions you get, there's multiple variables, that kind of go into why it helps rank, I think. Will it help you outrank your competitor for high search volume keyword? Yeah, in many cases. But in a couple of years, I think you need to develop long-term strategies. PR needs to be a component to that long-term strategy so that you don't have to keep changing your strategy every year. This is the frustration I've had. I'm a marketing communications guy. I focused on link building at one point because I knew it was profitable and there was a huge demand for it, and it worked very well, 2015 to 18. And then it stopped working very well. It got harder. And then it got harder. And then it got harder again, year after year, until you had to change your tactics up. My recommendation is think more long-term, build your techniques and strategies now that can help you rank. And those are going to be PR. Those are going to be communications, right? There's going to be actually anything that you can do to drive your audience to search out your brand, drive brand engagement, build yourself up as a thought leader in the industry. I know this seems trite, maybe a little bit, but it is, links alone are not just going to do it. It's a component of it, but you can get all the same value. If you're thinking objectively that you want to rank number one for the main keyword in your category, right? That drives the sales, the keywords that drive, what might call money keywords, you're going to have to think more long-term and more diverse.
And we only have a few minutes left. The next question is, you're embarking on a digital PR campaign. Journalist picks up the story, whether it's, data related or trending or whatever. They mention the brand, speaking of brand mentions, but they do not link. So do you recommend following up with that journalist afterwards, asking for a link, and any tips and insights on successful ways to do so?
It depends. So if you're Wall Street Journal, New York Times, I think that you are, I recommend moving very cautiously on following up and any additional asks. Some of them just have this sense of journalistic integrity that, they won't do that sort of thing. So I just be careful with it. Yes, we do frequently follow up with journalists who might not have linked, or they forgot it because they're just busy. Or if we think it'll be better for the user experience, if you can get it, sometimes it's okay to ask. Be very careful with the top tier journalists in the industry. You're working with some of these people, celebrity journalists or anchors, they're just going to ignore you, and it might hurt your relationship. Just it's all about relationships with some of these journalists who will write another story about you later, possibly when time comes up, or share your data with another journalist in that organization. Relationship is number one. For some of the top lower tier publications, like local or maybe some trade, I don't consider that low tier, but you might be able to ask, but for the most part, if they rip it out, it's probably because they think it's not worth it in there. I get stuff ripped out of my content all the time. I think it's the editor's discretion. If the editor rips it out, you're just bugging a journalist who doesn't have a lot of time. So I'd say very cautiously do that. And if you are going to do it, you got to create a reason. If you're linking it to your homepage, then they took it out, there's a reason. They're not going to link to your homepage. But if it's to a study and it improves their experience, maybe there's a reason for it and they might do it, but you have to have a rationale.
Yeah, if they're the New York Times, they might just link over to your Wirecutter profile, right? Yep. Which can always help from entity building in the long run as well. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. I can't believe the hour is over. Any closing remarks before we close out and end today's SEJ webinar?
I'd say data is going to be your friend. Any data that tells a story to your audience, speak to your audience. And it's not just about getting links from contextual sites anymore. If you're doing guest posting stuff, and it's not driving authority and it's not engaging with an audience, stop it. Stop wasting your time and money on it. I think that's the biggest thing I see constantly now is people are spending tens of thousands, 20,000, 30,000 a month on links, guest posting sites that aren't doing anything. And I'd say this is the most important thing. I wish I thought about this throughout the presentation, but how you evaluate the effectiveness of a campaign is no longer just the number of links you get. If I spend a month and I get an awesome story written from the New York Times and that provides one link, maybe I get 3 other tertiary links from it, that's a big win. But if you're evaluating your team or your agency and saying, I want 50 links that month, you might miss the New York Times link. And it's not going to, come to question whether or not that's going to, is volume better than that one link that's relevant to the audience? Some months we'll go for a client, we'll get 3 or 2 links. Last month we got 38 because we hit the right story, right? So it's how you measure and how you evaluate your agency or your internal team will impact how the quality of their work. So measurements and incentives, and poor incentives can really destroy a PR program and an SEO program and kill your results. So be careful about those incentives and how you evaluate people.
Excellent. So thanks again, Kevin. Where can people find you on LinkedIn again?
There's a QR code right there.
Oh, get your phones out, take a picture of the QR code. It's with Kevin on LinkedIn, X, or send an email over to PureLink. Kevin, it's been a real pleasure hosting you today. I really appreciate everything that you went through. Definitely eye-opening from a data perspective and, producing excellent resources and outreach. So again, thanks again for sharing everything with our audience, and looking forward to our next SEJ webinar with you.
Thanks, Lauren. Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Have a good one.